that's just Christians being too legalistic when they're calling it demonic.
Right.
Because because I'm not celebrating it with that intent. I'm not taking out my kids with the intention of, it being evil or we're doing anything bad. And you're probably right. Yeah.
I would say majority of people probably.
You're dressing up. Your kid probably is in a Spider-Man costume.
I know.
At that. You get me, like some kind of superhero costume. All right, guys, welcome back to this channel,
guys.
to 7Sixteen.
What is up?
Hope everybody's doing well. This is a Sunday for us, so we just got out of church, so we got all our
my
dressed
little
up look.
dressy attire. I got some heels. Listen, I am not a heels person. I am a heels person for like maybe 20 minutes, and after that, I'm
why?
done.
Actually, yeah. Why do you have them even on? Like you could have just
Because they look cute.
Okay. All right. So, so for today's episode, we're actually going to talk about a topic that till this day is kind of controversial for the Christian community. Yeah. It almost puts us at war.
I know. I think I've just been noticing like more and more how controversial it can be within Christians,
yeah.
Which is a little bit, it's interesting, but the whole point in all of this is definitely not to say like if someone's a good Christian or a bad Christian. I think that although it is our job, I believe, to be able to bring light into of certain things, I don't think it's necessarily our job title to be judging someone's spiritual life or to be saying like,
or no one to do that,
or no, like to be like, oh, this person must not be saved, or this person this, like, you're no one to be calling out someone. Like, you have no idea what happens behind closed doors. You have no idea how close or just their communication is with God. So this is by no means that. But this is just one of those topics that are just like really interesting to me.
Yeah.
And I feel like as like just the older that I'm getting, I feel like I'm just understanding so much more different perspectives. And, I grew up in church. I grew up Christian my whole life. But it didn't take until a certain age of mine where I started doing my own just research, my own studying of the word, and gaining my own perspective, and just obviously asking God for direction. Like, okay, what do you think about this, God?
Yeah, because I mean, even for me, when I was younger, it was similar in the sense that I only, did things because I was told to do it that way, but I didn't have any understanding as to why.
Right.
So the topic that we're getting on is Halloween.
Mm-hmm.
And it just stirs people up, right?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, here we go, Halloween. What are you gonna say? Are you gonna all if you're just gonna send us to hell for celebrating Halloween, or are you gonna be for Halloween? Which one is it?
Yeah.
And like I said, it's a holiday that for some reason Christians just can't come to an agreement on. I didn't realize that it was like this until I was much older, because when I was younger, it was just like, oh, you don't celebrate Halloween, and that's that. I mean, you don't go to school for that reason. And actually, fun fact, Adrian and I, we met because of Halloween.
Mm-hmm.
The both of us, we weren't allowed to go to school on Halloween. So we saw each other on Messenger. Back then it was MSN. Yes.
Oh my gosh, MSN and AOL and all of that. Yeah.
So we saw ourselves on MSN and we're like, wait, why are you home?
He was like my only friend that was logged on.
Yeah.
And I'm here like just doing my own thing, like my MySpace days, whatever. I would have MySpace open, I would have something else open, and then I would have my Messenger app, I guess you would call it. And then everyone's offline like at around 11 in the morning, and then I just see Xavier on, and I'm here like, what is he doing up? Like, what? Like, no one's ever on at this time, because I think we had mentioned it in one of our other episodes, but like sometimes, like growing up and going to school, I felt like the only Christian in school.
Yeah, same.
So
same.
I didn't know. Like for me, I'm here like, oh, like what happened here? So then I remember, I don't know if it was you or me. I think I sent you a message first. Like, what are you doing?
I don't know. That part is kind of like foggy, right? But yeah, it was just like, hey, what are you doing here? Like, I know why I'm not home.
Right.
But what are you doing? Not doing in school.
Yeah.
And then we kind of went from there, because we figured out, oh wait, you're Christian. Oh, I'm Christian.
Yeah, I was all
okay.
like, wait,
so a little love interest happened there.
Right.
But it wasn't until I was much older where, okay, now I'm thinking for myself, and and it's like, hey, why aren't we celebrating Halloween? Like,
Right.
I don't see nothing wrong with it. We're just
Right.
collecting candy, and
you're
I
dressing
just
up
want to
as
dress
cool
up with my
things.
friends. Like,
Right.
like what's wrong with that?
Yeah.
And it took a while, right? Like, at least for me, I don't think I've ever expressed this to you, but there was a moment where I just wanted to go out with my bike, and I did want to go out with my friends and figure it out. There was even a time where I didn't dress up, but I hung out with my friends because it's like, well, I'm not going to let my parents know that I'm celebrating it.
Oh, really? How old are you?
I think I was like 12 or 13. I was
It must have been right before we went out or something.
definitely.
Yeah.
And then it was like, it's like you didn't really know what to do, but you knew that you had to follow whatever it is that your parents say. So, that's beside the point. But when I got older, and especially right around this time where, we start leading a ministry, it's like, okay, you don't celebrate Halloween, but why?
Right.
It's not enough to say,
It's
I
'cause
don't
it's
celebrate
bad.
Halloween because it's bad.
Right.
You get what I'm trying to say?
Right. Yeah.
So Halloween, which I started looking into it, Halloween isn't necessarily it started off with good intention, I think. I want to say, I want to say that's the word. It started off with good intention. I'm talking about Halloween, not
Not the actual
not
pagan.
the pagan holiday
Right.
of Halloween. And the original way of saying Halloween was actually Halloween, which meant Saint Eve.
Right.
So Hallow is Saint, Een is Eve.
And it would go into November,
and
right?
Saint's Day was November 1st.
Okay.
So the Catholics, they came up with this.
Mm-hmm.
And now when you look online, it's like, oh, where did Halloween derive from? Blah, blah, blah. And they'll say it has Christian origins, and they'll try to tie the two. And then they talk about the pagan holiday, which is called Samhain. And if you look at it as English text, it kind of sounds like Samhain or something like that.
Yeah.
Samhain.
You know how English is.
And so those are the Celtics that they celebrated that. That was like the pagan holiday. And they had the traditions of like dressing up and candies and stuff like that. In fact, the purpose of dressing up for the Celtics was, if we dress up like monsters and if we dress up like demented looking animals or whatever the case may be, these evil spirits that can come out on October 31st, which they believed was like, there's like the spirit realm and then the physical realm.
It's like a thin layer.
There's like
at
a
that
thin
point,
layer
right?
between them on October 31st. So
the
it's
worlds
the
can
one time
cross.
where you can cross over.
Right.
And so they didn't want to get tricked or demented by these figures, right? So they will dress up like them and give offerings like sweets and animal offerings
Who would they give the offerings
to these spirits.
Oh.
These are the Celtics doing that.
So they didn't want to be possessed, so they would dress up and basically be on good grounds with them.
They would try to be on good grounds.
Okay.
Or they would try to not necessarily be on good grounds, but like kind of trick them to thinking we're one of you guys, like chill, we're homies. Like, that's what it was.
So trick or treat.
Right, exactly. So that's kind of like
interesting,
where
yeah.
it derives from. But Halloween was just to celebrate saints on the day of November 1st. But on the eve, it was more of a feast that you were supposed to have. And it was kind of like how you have Thanksgiving and you feast up. No, if a matter of fact, it's kind of like Christmas Eve to Christmas Day.
Okay.
You have a feast on Christmas Eve, then Christmas Day, you do the whole gifts and stuff like that, right?
Okay.
But that was the Catholic version, and then that's the Celtic version.
So what, did they just happen to kind of...
What happened is that we kind of lost, and by we I mean Catholics. They kind of lost the culture behind
why
Halloween.
they created it. Yeah.
And then instead, the culture behind the Celtics like over dominated in the 1920s for the Americans. That's when the Irish and Scottish, they started coming over to the States, and that's when like it kind of like fused together.
Right.
So now the Halloween that we celebrate today is really what they celebrated in Samhain, because we still do trick-or-treating and we still do the dress up, and it's still derived around fear and horror and stuff like that.
Right.
So all of those origins still to this day has pagan tradition. And even though the pagan holidays or the traditions, I want to say, they still kind of align with the way that people celebrate Halloween today, I want to say 90% of the people that celebrate Halloween, even Christians, none of them are doing it with like an evil intent.
Right. And I think that's one of the probably the biggest argument. Well, there's a couple of arguments, and I would say, like, I'm gonna ask you, because I know you're like so much more extra informed on like everything.
Informing myself,
yeah, because I know a lot, but I feel like you know the extra details of things, right? So I think the first one of the biggest things that people like counter, right, this idea of like, oh well, I'm not doing it like with the intention of doing anything satanic or demonic or anything like that. I'm just trying to have a good time. I don't see anything wrong with dressing my child as a Power Ranger or anything and just getting candy. It's him, like, kids be kids.
Yeah.
Like
let's not infect their minds.
Let's not infect their minds. And also, like, we're taking it way too much of a big deal when it's not. Yeah. So what would you say to that person?
So that argument is usually like, that's just Christians being too legalistic when they're calling it demonic.
Right.
Because I'm not celebrating it with that intent. I'm not taking out my kids with the intention of, it being evil or we're doing anything bad. And you're probably right. Yeah.
I would say majority of people
you're dressing up. Your kid probably is in a Spider-Man costume.
I know.
At that, you get me like some kind of superhero costume, or today would be some Barbie thing related. Mm-hmm. And it would just be for the girls, and then and it would just be let's call it something innocent, right? You're gonna go out, you're gonna get candies, and it's fun for the kids because all their friends are doing it. Right. But even though it's innocent, there's still the traditions of things. Mm-hmm. Okay? There's still these practices that happen that day.
Yeah.
There's still witches. There's still warlocks. There's still Satanists. Right. There's still evil going on, and it's specifically their holiday. It is their holiday.
Yeah.
It started that way, and it's continuing that way.
Well, the way I see it is that it started off as a pagan thing, right? Mm-hmm. And then Catholicism, right? Or Catholics, they tried to I don't know if they tried to redeem it.
I don't know 100%, but I do feel like their intent may have been for redemption.
Yeah, and I think that I'm not gonna say that nobody celebrates it with the intent of like honoring saints and all of that from then, but it was definitely not redeemed. No. Or it was definitely
by no means.
Not, because if it was like that, then all like, how do I say this? And I always like lose myself. We talk about how like we need to make a blooper thing with Adrian, like just forgetting what she's saying. But basically, like, if it was something that was redeemed, well, then how did the evil just completely consume, or the darkness completely consume this day, to the point where if you mention Halloween, no one thinks about honoring the saints that day.
God.
Or
saints for that matter.
For what Catholics believe in, right? Of like honoring the saints. Like nobody actually, like, I didn't even know that. For me, when I think of Halloween, I just think of like, oh yeah, like blood, gore, and horror movies and this and that. That's just what comes to mind automatically, right? And then I know obviously there's the other things associated, which is the costumes and the candy and stuff like that. But it is by no means something that I ever see as like oh, this is godly, or this is a beautiful representation day of like something else.
Yeah, and it's not. And this is where, some Christians might give me some heat for, but even if we were just to like say it was redeemed and it is Halloween, Saints Day for the Catholics, and that's what we call it, right? Well, if you think about it, we're not supposed to worship saints. We're not supposed to idolize saints. Mm-hmm. So Christianity has nothing to do with it, because Catholicism has a lot of false doctrine in their religion.
Yeah.
Whereas we have our faith.
Right.
You get me? There should never have been a Saints Day.
Or a thing of honoring the dead. This is just one of those things, right, where I understand where people will even like, talk about honoring like their past families and people who have passed away. But we're not to celebrate death.
Yeah.
You know, we're to celebrate life.
Yeah.
And so I find that there's a weird mix there.
Yeah. No, there's definitely something off. I mean, you even got, and I know a lot of people have heard this, but I'll still say it again. You have someone who founded the first satanic church in America, and he's saying in himself that he loves that Christians are giving one day to their children to worship the devil.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, wouldn't they know best when it comes to the darkness?
Yeah. Well,
wouldn't they know best when it comes to what it is to worship the devil?
Yeah.
So it's like, if they're saying it's demonic, we're also seeing Satanists saying that it's demonic, and we're also seeing people who
they're even actually warning us not to.
Yeah. We're seeing people who have been saved by. They've converted, right? They're saved by their past, but they're saying Halloween is not something to mess with. If they're saying it, then why are we still playing with this idea that Halloween is there's nothing in it, there's nothing wrong, it's innocent?
Yeah.
Like there's this whole idea too where it's like, if we're gonna call everything innocent, then we can call the Ouija board just a board game, and you like playing it because it's a board game. But no, there's evil in that.
Yeah.
And so you're not going to mess around with something that's evil and make it innocent just because you think, or just because it says the word game and it's fun. Like that's the way the devil works. I mean, the Bible even talks about how he's strategic, and the Bible even talks about how he dresses up as an angel and he tries and he does this trickery. You get what I'm trying to say? Like, there's things that we just have to be careful for.
So now, what would you say to the person that's like, okay, well, did you know that pagans also, Christmas is derived from paganism and birthdays and all of this. So what would you say to that person?
Right. So that's like the common argument, and that'll come from a lot of Christians.
Yeah.
And there was a podcast that I was listening to, and he specifically called out the lukewarm Christians that specifically say that. They'll say, oh yeah, well, you guys are talking about how Halloween is pagan, but what about Christmas? And what about Easter? And what about birthdays? And what about this? And what about that? Well, here's the thing. All right. Christmas, and although the history context of Christmas is not 100% accurate, the one thing that we do see is Christmas is kind of a redemption holiday to what is Saturnalia, which, by the way, was celebrated, I believe, from the 19th to the 23rd. I know the last day is the 23rd, right? Whereas Christmas is the 25th.
Yeah.
And Christmas is also to celebrate the birth of Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
So here we have something positive.
Yeah,
something about
something
Jesus,
that was redeemed.
No. Christmas is something positive,
right?
Something that is for Jesus Christ, right?
Yeah, no, I'm talking about in the time where it's happening. It is something that was intended for something bad, right?
And then it was Saturnalia was something bad. It was to celebrate their winter solstice goddess.
Okay.
And
it was something with orgies or something.
And a lot of the celebration had to do with feasts, parties, gift giving, and a lot of sexual orgies. It was a sinful holiday. Right. So Christians, they meant to redeem it and get rid of it. Okay. And they did so with Christianity. Now there are some things that they did so with Christmas. And now there are some things that carried on, like gift giving, and they try to say because of the three kings and stuff like that. But there are, you can see that there are some things that come from the pagan traditions, but none of it is negative.
Right.
None of that's negative. Yeah. And now it's carried into Christianity, carried into Christmas as a positive thing for Jesus Christ.
Right.
Okay. And Christians are the ones that celebrate Christmas, not the world, unlike Halloween.
Right.
And then the same thing goes for Easter. Easter was something to celebrate the fertility of the earth, and it starts around springtime, but that's in March. And then whereas Resurrection Sunday, or some people call it Easter, I've always known it as Resurrection Sunday, has nothing to do with no bunnies, has nothing to do with no eggs, has nothing to do with springtime. It's about the resurrection of Jesus Christ.
Right. Yeah.
Birthdays, come on. There's nothing negative about birthdays.
Yeah.
And there's some things that just carry on with culture. I mean, you have to legally know what your birthday is.
Right.
Right? The calendar also is pagan, technically. Yeah. You have to know what day it is. That's just the way our society works. Those are functions like Sunday. Sunday was for the sun god. Monday was for the moon god.
Right.
But you can't take away from that stuff.
But that's like saying, I don't know. This is the way my perspective is. It's like saying pagans ate, so that means I can't eat.
Right.
Or there's like certain things
There's
that are
just,
like that's
come
just,
on, like let's not try
certain things
to.
are actually living, and then certain things are completely demonic,
Right,
which is
right.
very different. So it's like to say, like, if you gave a gift, that means you can't ever give a gift to someone because that's pagan. But in this case, in Halloween, when we're talking about this, I don't see any backtrace, or I don't see any positivity that stands alone on its own.
No, there isn't.
Right?
I mean, there are Christians who they try to, redeem the holiday. Which, by the way, this idea of redeeming a holiday is kind of ridiculous, because Jesus is not out to redeem anything that we create. He's out to redeem the people. So what we need to focus on as Christians is redeeming the people who are lost souls. Right. But when it comes to Halloween,
but Christmas was kind of a redemption.
But the intention was to get people to stop doing the sin that they were doing.
Right.
That's the intention. They redeemed, while yes, they got rid of Saturnalia, but the holiday, it's not really for the redemption of the holiday. It's the redemption of the people.
Yeah. And it specifically celebrates the birth of Jesus.
Yes.
And while I know that there's, gift giving and things like that, there's actually so many Christians that are super against this idea of like, it has to be super materialistic and super this.
Yeah.
And I feel like you get a lot of call out of like, hey, don't forget. Actually, it's even a huge hashtag, like he's the reason for the season.
Exactly.
So it's like you can tell the tug there, but I just don't. This is the part that gets me. It's like I don't see that with Halloween. I don't see it being like, oh, well, we're celebrating Halloween and we're doing this because we love Jesus.
Yes, exactly.
And it's not to say that you can't do anything if it doesn't mean you're not loving Jesus, right? But this specific day is a day where we are mixing ourselves and we're actually being participants blindly, into something that is actually meant for worshiping Satan.
Yeah. Yeah, and I was going to say earlier that, there are some Christians that are trying to redeem this holiday, but inadvertently they're still celebrating it because they're calling it trunk or treat now.
Yeah,
so what they're doing is, they put, not now, they've been doing this for some time now. But what they'll do is they'll put candies in the trunks of cars. They'll park in their church parking lot. It makes it neutral, right? So you can let your kids dress up. But they have to dress up in innocent things, or like superheroes, or things that have nothing to do with the devil, right? And so they'll hand out candies that way. But then some churches will actually give out a service and do the same thing. Yeah. So they try to redeem it that way.
Like, I can
But my
understand.
thing is, like, why are we doing it on the day of Halloween?
Right. Or the weekend, or like,
No. Why are we doing it on the day of Halloween with the same purpose? Still handing out treats, still dressing up, and then it's on the day of Halloween. But we want to call it Christian because we're parking in our church.
Yeah.
That doesn't really bode with me. Like,
it just, for me, this is the part where it's like, everyone will have a different perspective on this, and there's actually plenty of churches that do trunk or treats. I just personally have not seen enough positivity and separation from like the world, where it's like, okay, I think this is, something that I would agree with. I almost see it as like, okay, let's say I'm gonna go to the bar and to the club with my friends, but I'm not gonna eat, I'm not gonna drink, and I'm not gonna be like grinding up on people or whatever. I just want to be there to have fun. But it's like that. But why are you contaminating yourself? That's the way I see it personally.
Yeah, like you're still involving yourself in the atmosphere of this contamination, let's say.
Right, on purpose to have fun.
Yeah, and the Bible talks about how we can't give the devil an opportunity. Right. That's literally giving the devil an opportunity by doing so. I feel
like you're just playing with fire, and my biggest thing is like, okay, let's just say like you're telling like, okay, well, I just want to take my kid and dress them up and take them trick-or-treating just for the sake of like candy and stuff. But what was it? And I know you have this information where it was like the houses back then had to be decorated in a certain form.
It kind of goes back to the idea of dressing up as a spiritual being, right?
Right.
As a negative, demonic spiritual being, a monster in a sense. you dress up your house so that way they can stay away from your house. You let it become like a burial ground, or you let it become an altar. Right. And, these things, they're dressed up to represent darkness.
Right. So what things do you know, like what things that people would dress up their homes back then?
No, that information I don't have. Okay. But what we do have today is literally what you see. You got skeletons standing out. You got reapers showing up.
Those graveyard? What is it called?
Tombstones.
Tombstones?
You have tombstones out. You have witches in a circle. You get me? Like it's weird.
And people get really into it.
Yeah,
like some people get to the point where you see like you have like the ghost lights flying around, right, which for me I'm like right. And then you see like dead people hanging backwards. You see
you'll even have like
what's that star
gory
called?
Looking stuff.
Right.
Like people, like it looks like literal blood coming off of a chopped off head.
Yeah.
How does that? You get me? Like,
but I'm doing this to glorify God. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to I'm not trying to make fun of anyone, but I'm trying to, give you guys my perspective with things.
Right. It's the way we see it.
I just don't understand. Like, there's certain things, and again, like, I don't consider myself someone like legalistic, like if that were the case, then I'd be like, okay, well, I can't wear makeup or I can't do this, Meanwhile,
like, you're a makeup artist.
I know. Meanwhile, I'm a makeup artist, and like I love listening to rap. I love listening, like that has nothing to do with it. But these are things, again, that like as time has gone by, as I have matured as a Christian, I have just, my biggest thing is like asking for direction for God. Like, God, does this honor you? Does this, would you be pleased with me if I did this? Like, I don't know. Sometimes I think about it. You know how like there was that era of like, what would Jesus do? Mm-hmm. Like, would Jesus come trick or treating with me like at like this demonic house?
I know he wouldn't. I know what he would do is preach his word.
Right. But I don't know if he would necessarily partake because, they talk about like, actually, this is a huge defense for even people not Christian, where it's like, well, Jesus ate with the sinners. Right? But Jesus didn't participate in what the sinners were doing.
He may have ate with them, but that doesn't mean he was okay with their sin.
Right.
He would help them.
He would call them out.
He would call them out, and he would help them to turn away from their sin.
Right.
That was his objective. It wasn't just because he ate with them that, then it's okay. Like, he accepts them. No.
Yeah.
No, it's the same concept of allowing people to come into your church even though they're sinners.
Yeah.
Because you're supposed to. You're supposed to help them come to Jesus. You're supposed to help them practice righteousness.
Yeah, the church is not a perfect place, right? With perfect people, it's not. And so going back to what I was saying before, like, okay, let's just say you're like, okay, well, I'm Christian. These aren't my objectives to like praise, Satan, or I'm not have anything demonic. My kid is a literal Buzz Lightyear and he just wants to like look cute and I want him to get candy.
Yeah.
But as you're going from house to house, like, do people like skip houses if they have like the pentagram?
I highly doubt it.
Do you skip the house that's like not as decorated, like the one that is representing Jesus?
How would you know if a house is celebrating Halloween if they don't have decorations though?
Right, exactly.
You see the decorations? Okay, they're celebrating Halloween.
Right. Usually the most giving or mostly decked out houses with like the craziest stuff are the ones that are probably giving the best candy. But usually that requires like real thinking into like what's extra scary and what's extra this. And I just feel like it's so opposite from what we are to believe in, right? What we are like, it's all about fear, first of all, right? And it talks about how like, the word talks about how perfect love casts out fear. So like fear and God, they don't associate, right? Like, and people will say like, oh, well, just like you said, like, oh, well, I'm just doing it for fun. I'm doing it for the kids. There's not like some Christians will say, well, my kid's not going to catch a demon if he dresses up like Buzz Lightyear, and just goes out and gets free candy. While you might be right, and I do believe that you're not going to catch a demon that way, right? You're not going to be suddenly satanic, or you're not going to be suddenly possessed by a demon. The Bible does talk about, like I said before, don't give the devil an opportunity. Yeah. Now, you don't know whose house you're walking into. Yeah,
you don't know whose house. You don't know if you're opening the door to a witch. You don't know if you're opening the door to a warlock. You don't know if you're opening the door to a Satanist.
Yeah.
You don't know what they did with the candy beforehand.
Right. Actually,
and if you check your candy, you know, and this is something EJ told us.
Yeah, I was just
right?
gonna say that.
If you check your candy, why? Why are you checking your candy? Why do you think there might be something bad in this candy?
Yeah.
There's something about it that makes you second guess. You wouldn't second guess it if you bought it from Walgreens.
Yeah.
If you just bought it, even if it came with the Halloween wrappers, you wouldn't second guess it. You just eat it.
Right.
But because you're receiving it from someone else, and because you know that there's evil going on this night, you do want to second guess because you do want to protect your child.
Right. Yeah. There's just so much negativity that goes into it. And like, you know, this is probably my side that I would say to some Christians is even more extreme or would really make me look like a legalistic person. But I'm even so much as like watching horror movies. I just don't, I don't cross that line. There's certain things that it has even made me like, just like stay up at night. It has made me like, I don't, bothers your spirit. Yes. And I don't feel right, you know? And this again isn't to say like that means I'm more spiritually mature than this other person that maybe doesn't feel. It's not about that, but it's like certain things like God speaks to us in certain situations, you know. So I just feel like God has like strongly spoken to me with that, and that's just like my point of view on it. And it is sad, right? Because the idea of like Christians being separated and you know, that's not what was intended. That's not something that God wants from us. And this is, again, just to reiterate this is by no means us trying to damn people or just like say how dare like, you, no, you're going to hell you that celebrates Halloween, like you're, you know, God will never forgive you or you need to repent. Like, no, but I will truly say to every person, like, you know, ask for guidance of the Holy Spirit. You know, don't even take it from us. Like, go directly for God, to God, and ask him, like, God, like, truly reveal to me, you know, in my heart. And God has his ways of speaking, and he has done this with other areas of my life, right? And then see what happens. Yeah.
And I know that there's ways that we can us Christians try to hide or cover up our personal conviction by doing certain things to, you know, in a way, like change the way we feel about it. So what we'll do is we'll go out on Halloween and we'll pass out tracts, but we let our child dress up anyway because people are more likely to open their door and receive what we have to give to them.
Yeah.
But honestly, we don't have to do that on Halloween. We can do that at any given time and try to help people come to Christ and try to help people come to a better walk in their path, right? Mm-hmm. It doesn't have to be specifically on Halloween.
And I believe that even if you do want to do it on Halloween, because I don't personally necessarily find it bad to preach to people on Halloween.
No, I'm not saying that you can't do it at all. What I'm saying is find a way to participate without participating.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Like, I just don't think that you need to dress up and look alike because people are going to be opening their doors anyways. Right, honestly.
Well, you could just stay away from the whole idea of dressing up. Right. If you do want to pass out tracts that day, or if you do want to, you know, take the opportunity to speak to someone, fine, do it, but be the light.
Yeah,
be the light in that darkness. Be the difference.
Yeah,
the Bible talks about, and I'll bring up I have 3 different verses, and this is just small amount of verses, right?
Yeah,
because the Bible has many different. You can go really into this, but let's just look at Ephesians 5:11. Take no part in unfruitful work of darkness, but instead expose them. Mm-hmm. I want to say that's what we're doing today. We're exposing the darkness.
Yeah.
Right? We got Ephesians 5. I'm sorry, not Ephesians. Isaiah 5:20. Woe to those who call evil good and good evil, who put darkness for light and light for darkness.
Yeah.
Who put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter.
Yeah.
And then we have the other one. First, I always butcher the name. First, the
Thessalonians.
Thessalonians. 1 Thessalonians 5:22. Abstain from every form of evil.
Yeah.
Abstain from every form of evil.
Yeah.
How will you abstain from a speck of form of evil if you want to dress up, if you want to collect the candies, if you want to celebrate Halloween, and you want to show up to the houses that look like demonic altars?
Yeah.
How do we abstain from that form of evil, but also celebrate it?
Right.
You can't mix the two.
It's like, what is it? Water and oil.
Water and oil. They separate.
Oil. They
separate.
There's just distinctions there.
Yeah.
You know, like I just can't see myself personally. I can't see myself dressing up. And one, I think actually cosplay and all that stuff is really cool. And actually one of my cousins...
I would love to go to Comic-Con.
Well, actually one of my cousins is, for his birthday, in December, he says he wants to have like a costume party or a cosplay party.
Cosplay party.
And so the idea of dressing up isn't evil, right? The idea of eating candy isn't evil.
Yeah.
But where you're dressing up, eating the candy at the same time and same day where... you know, satanic worshipers are doing this and they actually celebrate and are happy and rejoice when Christians do this is what doesn't sit with me, right? Because dressing up, I mean, yeah, like the idea of dressing up as Spider-Man or like something that you really like that's pretty cool, right? And I'm one that like gets super crafty with things. Like that's just how I've always been. So yeah, the idea of that isn't bad. It's just I can't personally see myself dressing up as something that I think is awesome, but then going into a house where I see ghosts, where I see blood dripping, where I see a pentagram, where I just see tombstones, like
and cauldrons,
and yeah, and just witches. Like witches in itself is already like just I mean like they're not good, right? Yeah. So then I just can't see myself being like, oh yeah, I mean I'm just here to have fun.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with this.
I'm in their playing field and I just want to have fun. Like I'm just you know, like that's the part where I don't see it. You know, for places that do the trunk or treats, I can see how you've tried to change it. I just personally feel like as Christians, we want to separate, you know, and we want to be able to stand out and be light in the darkness. And I just know that there's so much that goes on that month. Like people just get really excited about it. And some people just get really creative with it. And even with giving that benefit of the doubt that most people aren't doing it with that intent, just really look up what actually happens this day. You know, I know,
yeah, if you can't take it for us, do your own research.
Right.
And look what actually comes up on Halloween.
Which is what we ended up doing it because I'm here like, I think actually we spoke about this once because at one point we just weren't seeing things wrong and we ended up even doing
Fright Fest.
And
which
Six
is
Flags.
A Halloween thing at Six
Which is
Flags.
a whole Halloween thing. And I just thought like, oh, it'd be really cool to go and like get scared, people jumping at me, right? I totally understand where that's coming from, right? Where it's like, it's an innocent thing.
The thrill of
it's
just
fun
doing it.
And it's thrill, you know? But then like, as you really start like taking a look at things, it's like, man, ask God to take that blindfold out for certain things and just like, God, like really true me, don't let me see from my physical eyes. Let me see from my spiritual eyes. Yeah. You know, what is beyond this? Yeah. And I just know that because I work with a lot of women and I hear about like all the activities and the fun things that they want to do. And one of the things is that a lot of people actually do is they end up going to Massachusetts in Salem. Right. And then they go to that one witch town because they had witch trials. Yeah. Or which I still don't fully know what
Salem was the place where they burned witches, right? Okay. And then it's kind of like now it's like you go there and the whole town is like witch decorated. It's like
and people go dressed up. Yeah. And again, this is with the idea of like we're just trying to have fun, but you're dressing up as a witch who does like spells and does like tries to communicate. You know,
in an innocent way, you're partaking in something evil,
right?
In an innocent way. Let's just say it how it is. I know that you're doing it innocently. Yeah. I know that you're not doing it with any malintent, but you're still partaking in something that's evil. Yeah. And then God, I mean, I read the verse. Abstain from any form of evil. Any form of evil. Any form of evil.
Yeah, and there's actually one more verse that I wanted to add because I feel like we're coming to an end. But
we are, yeah.
2 Corinthians, I believe it's 2 Corinthians chapter 11, verse 14. It says, and no wonder, for even Satan disguises himself as an angel of light. Yeah. Right? Satan he's a trickster. Oh, yeah. He loves to make things that seem really innocent and really fun, make it seem really appealing for us. And really, it has just a whole malicious intent behind it. And it's just something that saddens the Holy Spirit, saddens him within us. And I just, there's besides Halloween, there's just so many other things, right? That the devil tries to disguise himself as. So again, I just would always recommend, don't take it from us. I mean, we had our share of experience, right? Of thinking like, oh, maybe it's not that bad. It's just for the fun. But like the Lord convicts us in certain things. And I know there's also this whole other argument that it's all like, well, that's your conviction and that's not my conviction. But it's like, there's certain things that are kind of black and white, you know? I understand that Halloween isn't in the Bible specifically, but what are the fruits of it? Yeah. It says you will know them
by their fruits.
What are the fruits?
Matthew 7:16.
I know, that's what I'm saying. 7:16. I'm like, so what are the fruits of it?
Yeah. Yeah. What are the fruits of Halloween? I mean, that's what it is. And you said it before. Ask God to take away that blindfold, right? Take away the way you see things for how it is now. Yeah. Ask for Him to let you see it spiritually through your spiritual eyes. Yeah. And once you can do that, then you can understand. You might not have the personal conviction right now. God understands that, right? Jesus has His grace over you. Understands that you don't have a personal conviction for it, but that doesn't mean it's not wrong. Yeah. Just because you don't have a personal conviction for it. It is evil. I mean, if you don't see how it isn't evil and you continue to go that route, well, that's between you and God. I'm no one to damn you to hell. I'm no one to say that, well, I mean, there's no hope for you. I'm not that guy.
Or
I'm
someone
not going
to say like, well, this person's spiritual life must be so far. Or
I'm not going to judge you. I'm not judging anyone. What we're trying to do is in a sense the way where I was trying to do for myself, trying to learn, right? I'm trying to expose the truth. I'm trying to see the truth in this whole darkness. Yeah. Okay, because something that's innocent can look innocent, right? Can be innocent, right? But it isn't. Yeah. The devil even has his own form of tongue, the way we have our form of tongue, our spiritual tongue, right? He has his own form of spiritual. He has his own form of worship. He has his own form of laying hands. He has his own form of prayer. Yeah. Okay? It's an imitation of the Christianity. But that doesn't mean that it's the same thing. They're different. They're very different. Yeah. Yeah. And we have to understand that. Now, if you feel, and I'm going to end it with this. If you feel like, well, I'm not, even if I feel slightly convicted, I'm not going to let my child feel that way. I'm not going to let my child think that. I'm not going to contaminate my child and make him feel like I'm doing something evil when it isn't. Yeah. I'm just going to protect them from that. Well, just understand that the Bible tells us that we have to raise our children with the word and instruct them. And the word will never depart from them. Yeah. Okay. And it also tells us that even if you feel slightly convicted or you're unsure, that is a sin. Oh, yeah. And if you're sinning habitually, God does not abide in you. Yeah. Instead, what we need to do is practice righteousness. Yeah. All these things I'm telling you is biblical. Yeah. Yeah. This is God's word, not mine. Yeah. Like, we're not perfect, right? And by no means are we also saying that we're sinless, because we sin every day. But there is a difference between knowing the truth and still sinning and then just doing it because of, like, I did a white lie or I did this. Like, there's clear differences, versus making the conscious decision of like, hey, I'm going to do this, Yeah. So. Yeah. But, like I said, that's all we have. That's where I was going to end it. I truly hope that this episode touched you in a way. It gave me light. It put light into what this was, what Halloween was, because I was confused by it, right? There was a moment where I was unsure. Now I'm sure. Yeah. And I'm glad that God revealed that to me. Yeah. I'm glad that I saw other Christian podcasters revealing the sin, revealing the darkness within this. I'm glad because it motivates more Christians to go out and speak against it, speak against the evil that's happening in this world. Because lately, what it's been is just everyone's accepting of it. Everyone's accepting everything. We're actually and I'm sorry, I don't mean to make this longer, but just even like how much tarot cards are being even just more accepted. Just everything like evil eye and crystals and let me read your palm real quick. The whole new age thing. It is so extra accepted now that I'm just all like,
wow,
Yeah.
like the devil's sometimes like he's not even trying to hide it
Yeah.
anymore.
No,
It's
he's not.
kind of just in plain sight.
I mean, me and EJ, we were just listening to a song that talked about how a guy was enchanted by the girl's love, but they called it black magic.
Wow.
You know,
I mean,
and that's the
there's
way
also
that it was keeping them in.
And there's also that other song that I know like shook even people who aren't Christians.
Oh, what is Doja Cat?
Yeah. Doja Cat,
Yeah.
whatever the
I
song
mean, this
is
stuff
called,
is coming
but-
out there, and we have to equip ourselves.
Yeah.
We do.
Yeah.
We have to equip ourselves, and if we're still blinded by this darkness, let's ask God to reveal it. You know, don't let us be like kind of like a guide. If you don't believe us, just look at it for yourself.
Yeah.
Go into the Word. Read the Word.
Yeah.
God will talk to you. If you ask for it, God will talk to you.
Yeah.
But with
Y
that,
hasta aquí mi parte.
y hasta aquí mi parte. With that, we're gonna end it here, guys. We, like I said, I truly hope that you guys were blessed by this podcast.
Yeah.
If you liked it, let us know. Hit that like button. Comment
Yes.
down below. Tell us what you think.
Yeah.
And
Tell
we'll
us if
see
you
you-
want us to also like cover any other kind of topics.
Oh, yeah.
Like that's
Yeah, for
something
sure.
that we just always accept because I don't know, just being able to talk and just doing our research, like it's actually pretty awesome to be
Yeah.
able to like really truly understand it from beginning to end, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
thanks guys
But
for
all right,
watching.
guys.
We'll see you
We'll
on
see
the
you on the
next
next one.
one. Bye. Now I can't wait for the month of November. And I want to eat all the foods.
No, I'm good. I don't want to hear Mariah Carey.
That's December, first of all.
That shows up in November.
No. She melts on Thanksgiving.
Oh, she melts on Thanksgiving.